Look closely at any $1 bill. Printed right above George Washington's portrait, in the same intricate ink as the rest of the currency, are the words Federal Reserve Note. We build our lives around these pieces of paper, assuming they represent a public utility. But the institution issuing this currency is a private entity, as disconnected from the government as a private shipping company, and it carries no actual reserves to back the money it prints. This dual collapse represents a mathematical certainty built directly into the monetary system, one that ensures as debt rises, your purchasing power must fall. To find the origin of this inescapable loop, we have to look past modern politics and go back over a century, to a moment when a clandestine group boarded a private train car under assumed names. The history of American money is the history of a sophisticated financial capture, planned long before the first bill was ever printed. In October 1907, the American financial system shattered. Panicked crowds filled Wall Street as millions of citizens watched their life savings disappear, the victims of an unregulated banking cartel that had manipulated money supplies for personal gain. The furious public demanded that Congress step in and permanently strip Wall Street of its unchecked power to ruin lives. They wanted a system that would protect the common man from the money trust. But the banking elite, who already controlled a staggering quarter of the world's wealth, saw an opportunity in the crisis. They realized they could use the call for reform to establish a central bank that would serve as a permanent fortress for their own interests. They faced a deep-seated cultural barrier. Since the nation's founding, Americans had remained fiercely suspicious of centralized financial power, viewing a central bank as an instrument of tyranny that would eventually consume the fruits of their labor. Because the public would never openly accept a central bank, the bankers drafted their plan in total isolation, intending to rebrand the entire concept for public consumption. On the night of November 22, 1910, a select group of financiers met at a dark rail terminal in New Jersey. They boarded a private railroad car with the windows blacked out, under orders to use only aliases to avoid detection by the press. Their leader was Senator Nelson Aldrich, the chairman of the National Monetary Commission. Aldrich was the maternal father-in-law of John D. Rockefeller, Jr., providing the direct link between billionaire wealth and legislative power. Joining him were representatives from the Rockefeller oil empire, J.P. Morgan's banking interests, and the Rothschild dynasty of Europe. Together, these men represented the primary financial powers of the human race. Their destination was J.P. Morgan's private resort on Jekyll Island. For 9 days, they enforced a strict protocol: use only first names and never speak the word bank aloud. Paul Warburg, the group's chief strategist, insisted on a specific rebranding strategy. They scrubbed every mention of a central bank from the draft, replacing it with the patriotic, decentralized-sounding title, the Federal Reserve System. They spent over a week engineering a blueprint for a private banking cartel, cloaking its mechanics in legal jargon to present it as a government reform. Once the bill was written, the bankers utilized their influence over major newspapers to stage a performance of opposition. J.P. Morgan and his associates publicly attacked the Federal Reserve Bill, calculating that if the public believed Wall Street hated the law, the common man would naturally assume it was written in his favor. To bypass the remaining opposition in Washington, the cartel's political allies waited for the majority of Congress to leave the city for the Christmas holidays in 1913. On December 23rd, in a near-empty congressional chamber, the Federal Reserve Act was brought to a vote, while the public was distracted by the season. With most of its opponents already at home, the bill sailed through the House and Senate. Hours later, a heavily pressured President Woodrow Wilson signed the act into law. On his deathbed, a broken Wilson would look back on this moment and write, "I am a most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country." The institution governing our economic survival emerged from a stealth takeover, timed for a moment of national distraction. The engine of this system operates through a specific loop. When the government needs to fund its spending, The U.S. Treasury prints government bonds, legalized IOUs that pledge the future tax dollars of American citizens as collateral for a loan. Rather than transferring physical gold or silver, the Fed creates the purchase amount by typing numbers into a digital ledger. It creates billions of dollars out of nothing and deposits them into the government's account. This diagram tracks a specific imbalance. The Federal Reserve conjures the principal amount of the loan and gives it to the government, but the currency required to pay back the compounding interest is never actually created. Because the total debt is always mathematically greater than the total amount of money in existence, the government must return to the Fed to borrow even more money just to cover the interest on the first loan. The $39 trillion national debt stands as the intended mathematical endpoint of the system engineered on Jekyll Island. Every time the Fed prints new currency to sustain this debt, the value of the individual dollar drops. This is inflation, a silent mechanism that devalues the hours and labor you have already spent. The rising costs of housing and survival today are the direct result of an institutional structure designed to drain the public's wealth into a private cartel. The architects knew a fiat currency could not dominate forever. To protect their empire, they eventually had to force the world to play by new rules, leading to the decision in 1971 to sever the dollar from gold entirely. For over a century, the public has traded labor for a currency engineered to fail them, all following a plan hatched by 6 men on a secluded island in 1910. Join us next week as we unmask the Nixon shock. Subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss a chapter of our uncut history.